Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day to all our viewers across the globe, and welcome to another interesting episode of Global Arena on my YouTube channel, Global Arena TV. I'm your host, Umar Isa Dandago. This program is recorded on Thursday, the 18th of May, 2023. My name is Umar Isa Dandago, like I've said. Today I've got a panel of experts, both of whom Nigerians, but living currently apart. And we are going to analyze one of this week's most important and biggest stories. It's the Turkish elections, presidential and the parliamentary. The election, especially the presidential one, has been described as quote unquote the most crucial election in 100 years. And others are describing it as quote unquote a bread and butter election. We will get to know what that means or what those statements mean in the course of the program. In a simple term, the world is watching, and the incumbent president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is looking for re-election after spending nearly 2 decades in power, though mostly not as a president, but as a prime minister. On the other hand, he is facing a toughly serious opposition. So, how did the election take place? What do the citizens want from whoever wins the election? And what is the fate of President Recep Tayyip Erdogan? Is he going back to the office or getting out? Well, I am joined by two diplomatic analysts, one from Malaysia and the other from Dubai. From Malaysia, I have got Dr. Abubakar Uthman from International Islamic University, Malaysia, also a fellow with Asia Middle East Center for Research and Dialogue, AMEC or AMEC. From Dubai, I've got Mohammad Qaddam Sidiq Isa, a Middle East Affairs analyst and a columnist for Daily Trust newspaper here in Nigeria. Well, thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for sparing your precious time to be with me on the program.
It's a pleasure.
Qaddam, thank you very much for being.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I'm going to start with kind of a general question to both of you. Doctor, let me start with you. How did you see the conduct of the election that took place last Sunday on the 14th of this month?
Yes, so good afternoon, good evening, depending on where our viewers are watching us from. Yeah. So with regard to this election or the Turkish election, so far, of course, we have to bear in mind before we start talking about the election in general, we have to bear in mind that it hasn't yet been concluded. So it is an ongoing process. So it will still need another round before the elections or the outcome are finalized. But so far, there hasn't been much, especially from the media quarter, about whether this election or has some sort of irregularities or any concern. What is coming out from Turkey is that the election has gone well, especially in terms of how it is conducted. And another important or another issue that is, or another thing that we hear from Turkey is that the election, as you have mentioned already, is very tight. So far, of course, it is very difficult to think about who is going to be the winner. From what we have seen, the outcome that we have seen, it is the incumbent president that is leading. But whether that is going to be the outcome of the final outcome, that we will have to wait and see. Only time will tell us that. So yeah. As I said, of course, we need time. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, they are going for the second round, what they call round of the election on the 28th of May. That's in about less than two weeks from now, and it will be between President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Mr. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Erdogan has got 49.50%. I'm looking at the figures. And Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has got 44.89%. None of them has gotten what they call 50% plus one or 50 plus 1% to enable him to win in the first round. Mohammad Qaddam Sidiq Isa, how did you see, as a Middle East affairs analyst, you've been writing a lot about Turkey, you've been writing a lot about not just Turkey, but its relations with other Middle East affairs, Middle Eastern countries and the world at large. But first, before we get to talk about that and the future relations or the future of the relations, how did you see the election?
Well, as we all know that it is the most hotly contested election in the history of Turkey and also in the political history of Recep Erdogan himself. Because though he has dominated Turkish politics for more than 20 years, starting when he became the mayor of Istanbul so far, this is the first time that he has to go for a rerun in an election, having failed to secure the constitutional 50% plus one, not 51%, just plus one vote that he failed to secure. So for him, this is the toughest election in his history, and it could be his toughest in his whole political career. Recep Erdogan in Turkey's political history can never be forgotten or even underestimated because he has turned around the country, especially economically, and he has already put himself on the history of the country as someone who has revived the country's economy and also restored the country's influence, or rather even created an influence, geopolitical and global influence for the country in international politics. Even though we have to make a kind of a demarcation between Erdogan before 2011 and Erdogan after 2011, even in terms of his achievements or otherwise inside Turkey and of course in the region. Because when he came as prime minister, or of course as prime minister and then president, he got all the support and solidarity in the region across the Muslim world, having revived some kind of Islamic things which had been abandoned by successive Turkish administration since the Kemal Atatürk kind of revolution in 1923. He, for example, made it allowed for women who are interested in wearing hijab to put it on wherever they want to go. Though contrary to what many people thought that he made it mandatory, no. Actually, before then, it was not allowed, especially in government institutions and public facilities. Now he came and he made it allowed for whoever interested to wear it. And he brought other kind of reforms that sometimes Islamists say that because he has that Islamic inclination, or rather Islamist political inclination.
To cut you off, what's the difference between Islamic political inclination and Islamist political inclination?
Well, Islamic, when you say something Islamic, definitely you are referring to things that have categorical Islamic position on them. Something that Islam sanctions categorically based on a clear Quranic injunction or on a clear authentic hadith. That is undoubtedly Islamic. When we talk about Islamist, isn't necessarily to be kind of compliant with what really Islam stands for. But those who are using it can propagate, either rightly or wrongly, that this is the position of Islam. That's why they are called Islamists, because not necessarily what they are saying is actually Islamic. Of course, for many instances, it is Islamic, but not always. And also, they can be used as political tools to kind of manipulate some Islamic some situation, or to secure support, or to undermine opposition, and all these kind of things. So in general, there is kind of a difference between being Islamist and something Islamic. So Erdogan was able to get himself popularity within the country, and of course in the region. Within the country, primarily because of his effort that revived the country's economy, especially in terms of its industrialization, and in terms of GDP, in living condition generally, and all these kind of things. So he got a lot of goodwill, and he deserved it, to be honest, yes.
Okay, Doctor, what more can you say about Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and what makes him popular, especially at the global stage, at the global level?
So to respond to that question, so first of all, we have to look at Turkey itself as a country, and what it has been through since the collapse or the end of the Ottoman Empire. So it has been through a lot of political turmoil, and the military has had a very strong hold on its political affairs or political system. So when, of course, the people of Turkey have been very tired of this military involvement in the internal or domestic politics of the country. So the coming of Erdogan is something that majority of the people in Turkey welcome. And of course, I mean, we can say that that has been justified so far, because after coming into power, he has proved himself to be very dynamic, especially in terms of international affairs. He has repositioned Turkey in the global politics. We have seen before the coming of Erdogan how Turkey has been put to the back seat of the international politics. And many of the European powers have been kind of really humiliating Turkey, and it has suffered a lot politically. What I mean here is, in terms of its international politics. However, after he came, then he started looking to a different direction in terms of the international affairs of the country. And one thing that we have seen, especially after a couple of years in power, we have seen how he steered the country away from Eurocentrism. Before, Turkey has been trying very hard, and in many occasions has tried actually to be admitted into the EU, and has shown concern about lack of admission or lack of recognition by the European countries. When Erdogan came into power, and they tried, to be honest, they tried to still get admitted into the EU, but when they still made some resistance from some of the EU countries, we have seen how he skillfully steered the country away from that particular focus. And with that, we have seen how Turkey has been more dynamic in terms of its approach to international politics and in its relationship with other countries all over the world.
So Doctor is saying that Turkey is much better off away or outside the EU than joining the EU, for example. Is that what you're saying?
So, okay, the way to look at that is that, you see, every regional entity or a regional body has its own plus and minus. So we have to look at it. Of course, by getting admitted into the EU, Turkey will stand to benefit in many ways, in certain ways. But at the same time, also there are also negatives to that. Particularly, Mr. Mohammad has already mentioned or indicated how the AKP party and Erdogan himself have been more Islamic in their orientation and into their domestic politics, which is a kind of politics that is not very much welcome in the EU and among the European countries. Without getting admission into the EU, that allowed Turkey to be what it is, to establish its own identity according to how its leaders like Erdogan wanted it to be. So probably that is the best way to look at it.
Okay, Qaddam, based on the explanation and the analysis of Dr. Abubakar Uthman, we have got to understand that Turkey should be, or Turkey is going to exercise more power and more influence in the global politics when it stays away from joining the EU. Turkey is not in the EU, for example, geographically. It's much closer to the Middle Eastern region. What sort of important role has it been playing in the geopolitics of the region, for example, the region of the Middle East? How big a player is it and has it been?
Well, Turkey being one of the only 3 countries, non-Arab countries in the Middle East, which we have Israel, Iran, and Turkey. And this brings the question of Erdogan before 2011 and after 2011. Because, you know, when we are talking about Erdogan, we are talking about one of the most pragmatic politicians in modern history, to be honest. Wow. Due to his ability to kind of assimilate any situation he finds himself in and use it for his political advantage. For Muslims and the Islamists generally around the world, they take him as a hero, which is quite rightly, though overrated, kind of, okay? Secularists as well also admire him as a secular politician, because wherever he goes, depending on the situation, he would admire secularism and declare himself to be a secularist. In fact, even Kemal Atatürk's, those who admire Kemal Atatürk, they admire Erdogan because he has always glorified Kemal Atatürk. Many people, especially in our part of the world, who glorify Erdogan, they don't know that. He's not that Islamist you are talking about. You are talking about someone who is good at taking advantage of every situation. If he thinks that the only way to secure your support is to sound very Islamist, he is very good at that. In fact, during this election, and despite his kind of opposition and enmity against the Shiites, we saw Erdogan even flaunting something kind of Shiism in order to win some votes, which his opposition rival, being a Shiite, that is Kamal, this guy of the opposition, being a Shiite. Yeah. So Erdogan, being a Shiite, of course, Erdogan he was trying, of course, to secure votes from his camp. That's why he sounded like someone who was a Shiite or kind of a Shiite apologist or things like that. Even quoting a fabricated hadith like La fata illa Ali wala Saif illa dhul fiqar. It's kind of hadith which is proved to be fabricated anyway. So he's good at that. Also, in European institutions and global institutions, he would always sound very secularist. I'm proud of that, to be honest. And as I say also, when he's talking before the audience of a Turkish nationalist, he would glorify Kemal Atatürk. And he would say that he's actually following his footsteps. So this is kind of
very dynamic. Erdogan is very
dynamic, but I would prefer pragmatism. in politics, this is more of pragmatism because he knows how to manipulate emotions.
Yeah, can we say he is as pragmatic as Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia?
Bin Salman is not pragmatic, to be honest. Bin Salman is not pragmatic because he accepts to be someone, he knows that, for example, he steps on toes and he's never apologetic about that. You see, unlike that guy, or Erdogan, who in every division of people or in every level of political inclination or whatever you call it, he has a lot of followers who think that he's against the other inclination of political people who have their different views. So that brings the question of what I have said, Erdogan after or from 2011, because it is part of that his pragmatism. When the chaos of the so-called Arab Spring erupted across the Middle East, it was at that point that Erdogan saw an opportunity to assert himself on the regional politics of the region, to get himself regional geopolitical influence. And he saw that the people who are and still are in the best position to make that possible and to facilitate that for him were the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay. Even though he is never a member of Muslim Brotherhood, he has never been, and he has never claimed to be one of them. But seeing that
between him and Muslim Brotherhood,
yeah, seeing that at that time they were the most organized political force who were in a position to take powers in some countries in the region, especially Egypt at that time, which of course they did, in Libya, in Syria. So he kind of aligned with them, gave them sanctuary in his country, gave them shelter, brought their opposition party in his country, facilitated or made it possible for them to establish media organizations, media houses to attack their countries. And he became like kind of their global hero, or rather their global benefactor, who would always on global stage in Europe, in the United States, and wherever he goes, protecting them and attacking the governments of their countries, like in Egypt and Saudi Arabia and all the region, UAE and other things. And that, of course, helped him a lot because he got the popularity he needed across the region. You know that Muslim Brotherhood, they are very good at media things. They have infiltrated. Yeah, they have infiltrated the media across the region and beyond. Actually, most of the Arabic-speaking media, especially the most influential, are dominated by them. So like their voices are heard all over the world. Yeah, of course, they glorified him from their podiums and platforms, and he was able to attract the popularity we see in the region. But that at the cost, because that cost the country a lot economically, because since 2011, 12, 13, his political exploits, which he has been able to achieve, began to slow down, and in fact, even the economy started to retract. Why? Because apart from his kind of bad relationship with his European counterparts, the relationship of Turkey and major Arab economies, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Egypt, of course, the largest Arabian country, was hugely affected to the extent that these countries cut down, or to some extent, even cut off their economic relationship with Turkey to a great extent that affected the Turkish economy a lot. And even though after like maybe in the past 4 years, 3 years, things like that, it has changed because as I told you, we are talking about the most pragmatic leader in the world that he turned against the Muslim Brotherhood. He turned against them. He came back now to his to Saudi people, the Gulf countries, to Mohammed bin Salman, despite all that he said about him, Egypt, and all these kind of things. In his all this in his effort to rectify things, to bring back those economic kind of partnership with these countries, so that he will be able to rectify the dwindling economy within the country, which his political opponents have been capitalizing upon. And in fact, even the result of this election, if not for the economic difficulties that Turkish have been going through over the past like 4 or 5 years, actually the result wouldn't have been that. He would have won it on the first round. There would never be any need for a rerun. But because the situation in the country economically is very bad, that is why, or rather what made it possible for the alliance of these opposition parties, 6 opposition parties, to even assert themselves to a situation whereby there will be now a rerun in the country's election. Yeah,
Doctor, I would like you to come in and talk about 2 things here. Here, Turkish influence in the Middle East, because you are also an expert in the Middle East, Middle Eastern politics, political affairs, for example, and then how economy dominated the voting intention, voting power of the citizens. What can you say?
So, Turkey, as Mr. Qaddam has already mentioned, is a regional player economically, and of course in other regard as well. And I'm glad that he has mentioned how things have changed in the maybe what we might call the second part of the Erdogan's era. So before 2011, things, of course, were crucial for Turkey, for the Turkish economy. And there was a boom, literally a boom. And we could recall that Turkey at that particular time, I mean before 2011, was attracting a lot of investment and was making a lot of also economic movement all over the world, not only in the Middle East, across the globe. So after 2011, this has changed a lot, in fact. And probably, as Mr. Qaddam has already indicated, that had to do, or that has to do with the Arab Spring, because of the Turkish stance on that particular issue. So, but at the same time, also there's another factor that we have to also consider, which really affected Turkish economy, and that is its relationship with the United States. And we have seen, yes, we have seen how that has been going up and down during the time of President Barack Obama, and even after that, during the time of Trump. So we have seen, we have seen, for example, what many analysts and many people have considered American attempt to stage a coup against Erdogan, which of course did not succeed. Yes, did not succeed.
2016. They call it a failed coup attempt in 2016.
Exactly, in 2016. But we could all recall, we can all recall that there were some Americans that were caught involved. One of them, of course, allegedly was a pastor, but what of course what many are saying, no, this is not really, is of course someone in the religious in a religious skin, but originally this is a CIA agent, and it wasn't only him, and that of course created a lot of tension between the United States and Turkey, and that of course with that the United States tried to hit Turkey economically very hard, and there were a lot of movement from the side of the United States to try and hurt Turkish economy.
Like by slapping the country with some hard-hitting sanctions?
There were no formal sanctions, but there were many other, economic manipulation that this kind of countries, especially the likes of US, global powers, that whenever they need to or they want to hurt you, they can always hurt you. And we could all recall how Turkey got into currency crisis at some point. If I could recall very well, it was, of course, around 2018 or after that particular incident. So there was that particular currency crisis, which was, of course, the reason, or one of the reasons, was because of that relationship that it had with the United States at that particular time. So these are some of the factors. Of course, there are other factors that maybe time will not warrant for us to indicate or to talk about, but there are many other factors that quite affect Turkish stance, economic stance within and its role within the Middle East.
And I've got to understand that Fatihullah Gulen, one of the people that are said to have been behind that 2016 failed coup attempt, for example, is still in the United States of America. And Turkish government has disavowed him, if I can put it this way, disowned him. They even label him and his organization as terrorists, for example, asking Turkish allies in Africa, including Nigeria and other countries, to cut ties with Gulen's investments. You know, they have Turkish schools, one in Kano, there is one in Abuja. They have a very big hospital in Abuja. So Erdogan at some point in time was even asking his political allies, his allies like Nigeria, to cut ties with Fatihullah Gulen's investments. So that's why even those schools have been changed and renamed from Nigerian Turkish, for example, institution or something like that, to Nigerian Tuleb or something like that.
There's Nile University, and there's So I'm glad that you have brought also that aspect, which I almost forgot actually to talk about when talking about the strain of the relationship between the United States and Turkey, and all that started of course long before that particular coup attempt in 2016. But with that was like the kind of a nail in the coffin. That almost ended any kind of cordial relationship between the United States and Turkey. And this particular person that you have mentioned, Gulen, he is allegedly a person with dual citizenship. So, and that is how the United States has avoided extraditing this particular person. It's claimed that this is a U.S. citizen, and the USA doesn't extradite its own citizen to other countries, even though under normal circumstances, the United States should honor that, because both the United States and Turkey are allies. I mean, they are all members of the NATO. We should all also recall that. But despite that, the United States denied that part. And this is, as I said, what caused what added to the strained relationship between the two sides. And we could recall also how Russia kind of exploited that particular situation. And according to some intels, the coup itself was aborted because of an intel from Russia. And that, yes, if we could recall, before that particular instance, before that particular coup attempt, the relationship between Turkey and Russia also was very strained. Wasn't good. But that particular coup attempt brought Russia and Turkey together, or closer together. Yes.
It was the Russian government that tipped Recep Tayyip Erdogan, like with that information, with regards to attempt.
Exactly. So they helped.
So that's why now they have been so much closer to each other.
So since that time now, we have seen how they have been very close, and it was even after that, and then Erdogan himself visited Russia, despite the fact that, remember, if I could recall, it was in 2017 or 2018 when Turkey gunned down Russian fighter jet in Syria. And of course, and despite that, we have seen how the relationship didn't really, or that particular incident did not really affect the relationship between the two that badly. And they have managed, despite all these circumstances, they have managed to continue a good relationship between the two. So this is also a point or an angle that we need to take into account.
Well, Qaddam, I have got to understand from the way I've been following the global politics, it's either you are pro-Russia and anti the United States, or pro the US and anti-Russia. But Turkey has managed to kind of strike a balance, even though it's been hard for it to do so. And speaking of Russia, Qaddam, what is the position of Turkey with regards to the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Pragmatic as usual, and which some people even describe as hypocritical.
Yes,
because,
that's what
because